Abel and Blessing grew up in Auchi, a town in Edo State, Nigeria. Their lives had been simple, their love steady and pure. Since their secondary school days, they had been inseparable, their connection rooted in shared dreams and hopes for the future. Despite Abel's handsomeness and hardworking nature, life had not offered him many opportunities. Blessing, who adored him, always reminded him that his strength and character would see him through. Together, they built dreams of a life beyond Auchi, a life where their love would grow, and they would build a future together. Abel, determined to make something of himself, decided to leave Auchi for Lagos in search of better opportunities. Blessing was heartbroken but supportive. With a heavy heart, she bade him farewell, and Abel left their village behind, hoping that Lagos, the city of endless possibilities, would be the key to a better life. Life in Lagos wasn't easy at first for Abel. He moved to the bustling city with nothing but a small bag and the dreams that filled his heart. However, the city's harsh realities quickly set in. Without a university education or significant job experience, finding stable work was an uphill battle. Yet, Abel was resilient. He refused to give up, driven by thoughts of Blessing and the future they had envisioned together. After a few weeks of job hunting, Abel stumbled upon the idea of starting a laundry business. It wasn't fancy enough, but it was honest work. He began by offering his services door-to-door, washing clothes for busy Lagos residents. His work ethic, honesty, and punctuality quickly won him loyal customers. Slowly, but surely, his small business began to grow. Though the money wasn't much, Abel found satisfaction in the honest labor and the growing trust of his customers. All he needed now was to bring Blessing to Lagos, and together, they would figure out the rest. With his business showing promise, Abel couldn't wait to share his life in Lagos with Blessing. He called her one evening, excitedly sharing the news that he wanted her to move to Lagos. Blessing, overjoyed, agreed without hesitation. Her love for Abel was unwavering, and the thought of finally being together again brought her immense joy. She packed her belongings and made the long journey to Lagos, her heart full of hope and anticipation. When Blessing arrived, Abel was waiting eagerly at the bus station. The moment their eyes met, it felt like time had stopped. They ran into each other's arms, a mixture of relief and happiness filling their hearts. Abel couldn't believe that the woman who had been his source of strength and joy was finally going to live with him. Together, they felt invincible, ready to take on whatever challenges life threw at them. Living together in Lagos brought Abel and Blessing closer than ever. Though their apartment was small, it was filled with love and laughter. Every morning, Abel would wake up beside Blessing, grateful for her presence. They shared everything, meals, chores, and dreams of their future. They vowed not to be intimate until after marriage, a decision that strengthened their bond even further. Their love was deep and pure, and they trusted that their patience would be rewarded when they eventually tied the knot. Abel continued to work tirelessly at his laundry business, while Blessing managed their home, supporting him in every way she could. Life wasn't easy, but they were content. They believed in each other and in the future they were building. They were determined to rise above their humble beginnings and create a better life for themselves, no matter how long it took. One day, while Abel was working at his shop, one of his regular customers, Mr. Namdi, drove up unexpectedly. Abel was surprised to see him, as he usually picked up the laundry himself. "Sir, you didn't have to come all the way here. I would have come to your house," Abel said politely. Mr. Namdi smiled but didn't respond. Instead, he motioned for Abel to get into his car. Curious, Abel agreed, thinking that perhaps Mr. Namdi had more work for him at home. However, when they arrived, Mr. Namdi didn't hand him any dirty clothes. Instead, he offered Abel something entirely different, a life-changing opportunity. Mr. Namdi revealed that he dealt in illegal substances, and that he needed someone to make deliveries around Lagos. In return, Abel would be paid a huge sum for each successful delivery. As Abel stared at the bundles of cash, his heart raced. The money was more than he had ever seen in his life. Abel's mind was spinning as Mr. Namdi laid out the details of the job. The money was tempting, especially considering his current financial struggles. He imagined all the ways his life could change if he accepted the offer. He could finally give Blessing the life she deserved, no more struggling to pay rent or living day to day. But then, a pang of guilt hit him. Abel had always prided himself on being honest and hardworking. This offer went against everything he stood for. And then there was Blessing. How could he face her, knowing that he had gotten involved in something so dangerous and illegal? With a heavy heart, Abel made his decision. He turned down the offer and left Mr. Namdi's house, his mind still swelling with thoughts of what could have been. As he walked home, he tried to shake off the temptation, reminding himself of who he was and what was truly important to him. When Abel arrived home, he was met with an unexpected sight. Blessing was sitting outside the apartment, their belongings scattered around her. She was crying, and Abel's heart sank. He rushed to her side, asking what had happened. Through her tears, Blessing explained that the landlord had come by demanding rent. When Abel hadn't been home to pay, the landlord had thrown their things out. Abel's heart ached as he held Blessing close, trying to comfort her. He knew how much pressure they were under, and the last thing he wanted was for her to suffer because of their financial struggles. He promised her that he would take care of everything. Deep down, though, he felt the weight of their situation crushing him. He needed money, and he needed it fast. That night, Abel pleaded with the landlord to allow them for just this week, and he agreed. Abel couldn't sleep. His mind was racing, consumed by the pressure of their financial troubles and the temptation he had turned down earlier. He thought about Blessing, who was sleeping beside him, and the promise he had made to take care of her. The thought of disappointing her, or failing in his role as her protector, gnawed at him. The image of Mr. Namdi's stacks of money flashed through his mind repeatedly. It was enough to solve all their problems, enough to keep them afloat for a long time. The following morning, Abel went to his shop, but he found it difficult to focus. The stress of the previous night, coupled with the landlord's deadline, weighed heavily on his shoulders. He couldn't stop thinking about the money. His small savings wouldn't be enough to cover the rent, let alone improve their situation. After hours of wrestling with himself, Abel made a decision that would alter the course of his life. He left his shop and headed straight to Mr. Namdi's house. When Abel arrived at Mr. Namdi's house, his mind was made up. He knocked on the door, his hands trembling slightly. When Mr. Namdi opened the door, he didn't look surprised to see Abel. It was as if he had known all along that Abel would return. Without a word, Abel nodded, signaling his acceptance of the offer. Mr. Namdi smiled and led him inside. The job was simple. All Abel had to do was make deliveries, dropping off packages to specific clients in Lagos. In exchange, he would receive an amount of money that swallowed anything he had ever earned through his laundry business. Mr. Namdi handed Abel the first bundle of cash as an advance payment. Abel stared at the money, feeling a strange mix of relief and dread. With that cash in hand, he returned home, determined to pay the landlord and resolve their immediate problems. But as he stepped through the door, a part of him knew that things would never be the same again. When Abel returned home, he paid the landlord in full, finally putting an end to the threat of eviction. But that wasn't all. With the extra cash in hand, Abel bought groceries, new clothes, and even some gifts for Blessing. It was the first time in months that they didn't have to worry about money, and for a brief moment, it seemed as though things were looking up. Blessing, however, was suspicious. She knew Abel's laundry business had been doing well, but not well enough to explain the sudden influx of money. She confronted him, asking where the money had come from. Abel, trying to avoid the truth, brushed her off. "Don't worry about it," he said, smiling. "Just enjoy our new life." But Blessing's intuition told her that something was wrong. Abel wasn't the same man she had fallen in love with. He had changed, and she couldn't shake the feeling that something dark was looming over their lives. Over the next few weeks, Abel began to drift far away from Blessing. He no longer spent as much time at home, often leaving in the middle of the night to handle deliveries for Mr. Namdi. He would return the following morning, exhausted and distant. Blessing tried to talk to him, but Abel always pushed her questions away, insisting that everything was fine. Their once happy home became filled with tension and uncertainty. Blessing couldn't shake the feeling that Abel was hiding something dangerous from her, and the man she once knew seemed to be slipping away. She missed the days when they lived simply, even though they had little. Now, their newfound wealth felt tainted, and Blessing found herself wondering if it was all worth it. One day, Abel came home driving a brand new car. It was sleek and expensive, a far cry from the humble lifestyle they had once led. When Blessing saw the car, her suspicions reached a breaking point. She confronted Abel, demanding to know where all the money had come from. "Babe, I don't know what's going on, but I can't do this anymore," she said, tears streaming down her face. "This isn't you, and I don't want to be part of it." Abel, now hardened by his new life, barely seemed to care. "If you can't stay calm and enjoy what we have, then maybe you should leave," he replied coldly. His words cut Blessing deeply. Heartbroken, she packed her belongings and left the apartment, seeking refuge with her friend Funk, who left to Lagos immediately after their secondary school years back. Blessing moved in with her best friend Funk, who welcomed her with open arms. Funk had always been supportive of Blessing's relationship with Abel, but even she had noticed the recent changes in Abel's behavior. Funk's home was a place of peace, and it was there that Blessing began to heal. As time passed, she found herself spending more time with Funk's elder brother, Isaac. who runs a successful online and offline fashion business. Isaac was kind, patient, and everything Abel had once been. He listened to Blessing's concerns and offered her a sense of comfort she hadn't felt in a long time. Slowly, Blessing began to develop feelings for Isaac, though she tried to suppress them out of loyalty to Abel. But the more she got to know him, the harder it became to deny her growing attraction. Despite her initial hesitation, Blessing's feelings for Isaac continued to grow. He was different from Abel in many ways, more grounded, and deeply respectful of her emotions. Over time, their conversations turned from casual to intimate, and Isaac made it clear that he was interested in more than just friendship. He admired Blessing's strength and resilience, and he wanted to be a part of her life. Blessing was torn. She still cared for Abel, but the man he had become felt like a stranger. Isaac, on the other hand, represented the stability and love she had always dreamed of. After much reflection, Blessing realized that she deserved happiness, and if that happiness wasn't with Abel anymore, she needed to move forward. Isaac, sensing that the time was right, proposed to Blessing. He wasn't just asking her to marry him, he was offering her a chance at a new life, one filled with love, security, and peace. Blessing was overwhelmed by the offer. She had never imagined that her life would take such a turn, but standing before Isaac, she felt a sense of clarity. This was the man who truly understood her and who would cherish her, especially running a legit business. After careful consideration, Blessing accepted Isaac's proposal. They traveled down to Auchi and the traditional marriage rites were carried out immediately, and Blessing became Isaac's wife. For the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of peace. Abel, on the other hand, continued to spiral deeper into his dangerous new lifestyle, unaware of the life he had lost. While Blessing was beginning a new chapter with Isaac, Abel's life was unraveling. The quick money from his illegal dealings had brought him temporary wealth, but it also came with new lifestyle. Abel began drinking heavily, clubbing late into the night, and smoking substances he had once sworn he would never touch. His laundry business fell by the wayside, and the honest, hardworking man he had once been was now a shadow of his former self. His nights were filled with reckless behavior, and his days were spent hiding from the reality of the choices he had made. He no longer cared about the future he had once planned with Blessing. All that mattered now was the fast life, the money, the parties, and the thrill of the dangerous world he had stepped into. But beneath it all, Abel was slowly falling apart, his conscience staring at him with every bad decision. One night, during a routine delivery for Mr. Namdi, Abel was interrupted by the authorities. Unknown to him, the EFCC, Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, had been tracking Mr. Namdi's illegal operation for months, and Abel had walked right into their trap. He was arrested on the spot, handcuffed and taken into custody. The reality of his situation hit him like a ton of bricks. Everything he had done, everything he had built, his life of crime, had come crashing down. In court, Abel was sentenced to 10 years in prison for his involvement in drug trafficking. As he sat in his cell, the weight of his choices settled on him. The man who had once been honest and full of hope was now a prisoner of his own making. His thoughts often wandered to Blessing, wondering what had become of her, but he knew that he had lost her forever. The years ahead would be long and filled with regret. While Abel languished in prison, Blessing was thriving in her new life. She had found happiness with Isaac, and together they built a home filled with love and laughter. Blessing often reflected on her past with Abel, but she knew that leaving him had been the right decision. She had chosen a life of peace and stability, and Isaac had given her everything she had ever wanted. Though her heart had once belonged to Abel, Blessing had moved on, embracing the new chapter of her life with open arms. The love she had once shared with Blessing found solace in her new life with Isaac. The memories of Abel still lingered in her mind, but she had grown strong enough to let go of the past. Isaac was everything she needed, a man of integrity who offered her a sense of peace and security she hadn't known in years. Slowly but surely, Blessing began to heal from the emotional scars Abel had left behind. She found joy in her marriage, in the simple things they did together, sharing meals, planning for the future, and building a life of love. Isaac was patient, knowing that Blessing's past was filled with pain and heartbreak. He never rushed her, giving her the space to process her emotions and find closure. Over time, Blessing's heart began to open again, fully embracing her new life. Her days were filled with peace, her nights with the comforting presence of a man who truly cherished her. Though she still prayed for Abel's well-being, Blessing knew that her future was now with Isaac. Inside the prison walls, Abel was tormented by guilt. The isolation gave him too much time to think about the choices he had made, the people he had hurt, and the life he had thrown away. He often thought about Blessing and the promise they had made to each other, to stay together and build a life of love and integrity. That promise was now shattered, and Abel was filled with regret. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, Abel realized how far he had fallen. The money, the luxury, and the fast life had all been temporary. What remained was the damage he had done to himself and the people he loved. Abel's heart ached with the realization that he had lost Blessing, and that the woman who had once been his source of strength was now out of reach forever. He had betrayed everything he stood for, and now he was paying the price. One day, as Abel sat in his prison cell, he received an unexpected letter. It was from Blessing. She had heard about his imprisonment through mutual friends in Auchi and had decided to write to him, not out of pity, but to offer him a sense of closure. The letter was filled with compassion, though it also spoke of the pain Abel had caused her. Blessing told him that she had moved on, and that she was now happily married to Isaac. She wished Abel well, hoping that he would use his time in prison to reflect on his life and find a way to rebuild when he was released. Abel was overwhelmed with emotion as he read the letter. He hadn't expected any kindness from Blessing, and her words cut deep. Yet, there was also a glimmer of hope in her letter. She hadn't forgotten the man he used to be, and she believed he still had the potential to change. Blessing's letter served as a wake-up call for Abel. For the first time since his arrest, he began to seriously reflect on the man he had become. He realized that he had been chasing after empty promises, wealth, power, and prestige that had led him down a dark path. Abel knew that he couldn't undo the damage he had caused, but he could change the course of his future. Determined to turn his life around, Abel began participating in rehabilitation programs offered in prison. He attended workshops, counseling sessions, and even began reading books on personal growth and spirituality. Abel was committed to becoming a better version of himself, not just for the people he had hurt, but for his own soul. He vowed that when he was released, he would start over, leaving behind the mistakes of his past. Meanwhile, Blessing's life with Isaac continued to flourish. Their bond deepened, and soon, they were blessed with the news that Blessing was pregnant. It was a joyous occasion, one that brought them even closer. Blessing, who had once worried about the uncertainties of her future, now felt secure in the family she was building. The life she had once dreamed of with Abel was now a reality with Isaac. As her pregnancy progressed, Blessing felt a sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought her to this point. Though her past with Abel had been filled with heartache, it had also taught her valuable lessons about love, loyalty, and resilience. Isaac was a constant source of support, and together, they prepared for the arrival of their child, excited for the next chapter of their lives. Inside the prison, Abel's transformation continued. He had become a model inmate, earning the respect of both the guards and his fellow prisoners. His commitment to change was evident, and he began mentoring other prisoners, sharing his story in the hopes that it would prevent others from making the same mistakes he had. Abel knew that his journey to redemption would be long and difficult, but he was determined to walk that path. One day, Abel was approached by a warder who had taken notice of his efforts. He offered him a position as an assistant in the prison's educational program, where Abel could help teach literacy and life skills to other inmates. Abel accepted the role eagerly, seeing it as an opportunity to give back and to begin rebuilding his life, even behind bars. Back to the outside world in Lagos, Blessing gave birth to a healthy baby boy. The arrival of their son brought immense joy to her and Isaac's lives. They named him God's Time. As a mother, Blessing felt a deep sense of purpose, and she poured all of her love into raising their child. Isaac was an attentive and loving father, and their home was filled with laughter and happiness. Blessing often marveled at how far she had come from the uncertainty and turmoil of her past with Abel to the peace and fulfillment she now enjoyed with Isaac. She was grateful for the life she had built, and she knew that she was exactly where she was meant to be. As the years passed, Abel's behavior and dedication to his personal transformation did not go unnoticed. His good conduct in prison, combined with his contributions to the rehabilitation of other inmates, led to his sentence being reduced. After serving 6 years, Abel was granted early release for good behavior. Though he was free from prison, Abel knew that his real journey was just beginning. He had a second chance at life, and he wasn't going to waste it. Abel returned to Lagos life, a changed man. He no longer sought the fast life or easy money. Instead, he focused on rebuilding his life from the ground up. Though he had lost many friends and connections, Abel was determined to find honest work and redeem himself in the eyes of society. His first step was to reopen his laundry business, the humble trade that had once brought him pride and purpose. Once settled back in Lagos, Abel found himself yearning for closure. He hadn't spoken to Blessing since her letter all those years ago, and he wondered how she was doing. Though he knew she had moved on with Isaac, part of him longed to make amends for the hurt he had caused her. He decided to reach out, not to rekindle their past relationship, but to offer her a heartfelt apology. Abel wrote a letter to Blessing, expressing his regret for the choices he had made and the pain he had caused her. He explained the journey he had been on, the lessons he had learned, the man he had become, and his desire to make things right. Abel didn't expect a response, but writing the letter gave him a sense of peace. He had finally faced the ghost of his past, and now, he could fully focus on the future. When Blessing received Abel's letter through her best friend, she was surprised. She hadn't expected to hear from him after all these years, and though her life with Isaac was full and happy, Abel's apology stirred old memories. As she read his words, Blessing felt a mixture of emotions, sadness for the man Abel had once been, but also admiration for the growth and redemption he had sought. Though Blessing had no intention of rekindling their past relationship, she found closure in his words. She wrote back, offering him forgiveness and wishing him well on his journey forward. For her, Abel's apology marked the final chapter of their story, a chapter that allowed her to fully move on without any lingering regrets. She had her family, her love with Isaac, and the future ahead of them was bright. Abel's laundry business began to flourish once more. Though it was a modest operation, he found satisfaction in the honest work. He had learned the hard way that shortcuts only led to ruin, and now, every small success felt like a victory. His customers, many of whom remembered him from before, welcomed him back with open arms. Abel had rebuilt his reputation, not as a man of wealth or power, but as a man of integrity. Though his path had been rocky, Abel was proud of the man he had become. He no longer sought validation from others. Instead, he found fulfillment in his daily work, his personal growth, and the knowledge that he had finally made peace with his past. The future was uncertain, but Abel was ready to face it head-on, one day at a time, knowing that he will experience the goodness of the light at the end of the tunnel anytime soon. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to leave your thoughts, like and subscribe for more interesting stories like this.